Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. We are here with our host, Imam Izak-EL Pasha, the resident Imam of Masjid Shabazz and the publisher of the Thinker newspaper. Welcome, Imam Pasha.
Well, thank you. Ramadan Mubarak to you too. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. We start always with witnessing to God as one, having no associates or partners. He is God alone. Nothing's like unto him. And we witness to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and the peace be upon him, Allah's servant and messenger and the seal of the prophets, and all that would follow of that traditional salute to the Prophet, and peace be upon his family, his companions, all be the peace. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. Again, we are glad to be with you on the Thinker program in this very sacred month that we're in, the month of blessings. As our holy book, the Quran, says, Ramadan is the month of blessings. And we're into the 7th day of the fast, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Muslim fast in this sacred month of Ramadan, which is the time in which our holy book, the Revelation, the Quran, revealed to Prophet Muhammad the prayers and peace be upon him. And it's a month of a lot of reflection, giving us time to reflect upon our individual life, our family life, community life, and certainly our country and the world, the life that we're living, and the circumstances that we find ourselves in this day and time in 2023. So we're grateful to be with Sister Masha here today, and look forward to doing our best to answer the questions that she may have in the best way. That's our intent, that's our niyyah. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Imam Pasha. As you mentioned, we are in the month of Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak again.
Ramadan Mubarak.
We had a conference call with the Muslims in our association to start the month of Ramadan. Could you explain that process?
Oh, yes, praise be to God. Yes, and it was a wonderful call, too, I must say. Our leader, Imam W.D. Muhammad, may God forever give him high stations in paradise, along with his mother and father, the Honorable Elijah and Claire Muhammad, and many of the great men and women who followed to make much sacrifice to bring us to Islam proper, and to have us on this great movement, this great life of peace, which is what Islam stands for, peace, and obligates us to maintain the peace. I was asked, oh boy, it's been now almost 20 years. I guess they said time flies when you're having fun. I don't know about the fun part, but I have accepted the responsibility that Imam Muhammad asked me to do in coordinating the sighting of the Hilal, which is saying the sighting of the moon when you see that thin line after the black moon and the moon is coming in. And he gave me instructions on how we should look for it, particularly because there was some confusion prior to me being asked to do this by the Imam in terms of different sightings and people claiming sightings and etc. And it was making something that shouldn't be difficult, should be very easy. And I used to wonder why there was so much difficulty from the other Imams in terms of coming together and making it happen. Because we see the moon all the time. And I'm trying to understand why in the month of Ramadan, that all of a sudden the moon became a big issue. So the Imam asked me to get on. At that earlier part, we were having the joint collective communities. The main four ones was the community of Imam W. Muhammad, a community of Imam Jamil El-Amin, Isna, and Ikna. Those were the four communities that were having the phone call in order to declare when the month was coming in particular in our hemisphere. That was another part of the difficulties in terms of whether we should look in our hemisphere, accept it from someone else in the hemisphere, like say Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that, which to me at that time didn't make sense because the time difference is so great. You know, we are now in the time moving towards the Dua prayer. Would be our next prayer, the afternoon prayer. And in Saudi Arabia, who knows, it could be Fajr there now. I don't know, I didn't calculate the time, but I know there's a big difference, so it didn't make sense. And then when the Imam, after first year, me going on that call and listening to the debates and arguments about it, and then the second year, I went and did the same thing, and it was on the call so long, it was a few hours of debating between the astronomers and others and etc. And at the end, when the group was getting ready to call it and say, well, no, we're going to call it, Allah in His mercy, He blessed me to interject, and I just simply said, well, I thought that after all this discussion with astronomers and other people participating, that it would be up to the 4 representatives of the communities to have a final discussion and then make a decision. And they informed me that no, that's not how they did it. So I had to say to them what Muhammad the Prophet, the prayers and peace be upon him, said to us. And I said to them, you know, the Prophet said, leave that which makes you doubt, for that does not make you doubt. And at this point, we are choosing a doubtful matter based on the 2 hours of the arguments that went back and forth. And if we wait one day, we'd know there would be no doubt. I mean, again, this was the second year that I was on the call, and it got very quiet. And then afterwards, one of the brothers came back and said, well, this is how we do it. And at that point, I told him, well, then the community, Imam W. Muhammad, we will not go with you on a doubtful matter. We're not going to do that. And that call ended, and I was a little nervous about it. I said the right thing. I knew I was correct, but I'm new on this, so I was a little apprehensive, and I have to call now the Imam. And this is early into the morning already. It's like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. So I had to make the call. Nothing I could do but make the call after I'd made my statement. And I made the call, and alhamdulillah, praise be to God. I was expecting an answer machine or something to come on. I just would leave it and be able to get away. But the man picked up the phone, and I said, well, I started to, humna, and well, the Imam, the call, and he stopped me. He said, no, I was on the call. And what you said was correct and right, and we will be going with what you said. I said to myself, go with what I said. I only know about Muhammad the Prophet and know these things because of following you. But I didn't say all that quite naturally. I accepted it and was very, very relieved. But what happened after that is that the other 3 communities decided after that they would no longer have the group together to do it. So I went to the Imam, and he was made aware of that. And he just simply said, we're the largest community of Muslims in America. The indigenous people in America, the African American, the indigenous people in America. We're the largest Muslim community in America. The only way our other brothers and sisters would outnumber us is they would all have to come together. And he said, why is it that we have to have someone else look for the illegal for us? Right. And he made the same statement. We see the moon all the time. Why has it become something that it should not be? Entering into this very sacred month for us, the blessed month, to have to enter it with confusion. So he then instructed me to send a message out to all the people, all the believers in our community, in our association, to ask them to participate in the moon sighting. Okay. And he gave me the formula and that he used, and he said, this is the formula of the Prophet, the prayers and peace upon him, used. And he has been using it his entire life in Islam, and he has never missed or incorrect the moon's sighting. So he gave me that, and that was a big relief. And from that point on, I reached out to the different communities and what have you. I also asked him when he told me that, the way he said it to me, I had to ask this. I said, well, you're saying everybody, but how about the imams?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes, certainly, everybody, the imams too. But he cautioned me, he said, but do not allow the imams to take it over.
Okay.
And it kind of threw me a little bit off. And he explained, this should be something that all the members in our community participate in.
Okay.
That's the blessing of it, of everybody participating. This is not a clergy. We don't have a clergy club or a hierarchy club and what have you. That's not Islam. Everyone is responsible. Everyone is obligated to do those things which Islam asks us to do. So I pursued it and I followed those instructions, and now I think it's about almost 20 years that I have been the coordinator, the facilitator, and no big eyes and little U's. I understood what he was saying. So when I sent out the notifications to the people, I sent it out as Brother Pasha, the facilitator,
Yes, sir.
so that there will be no mistakes. There's no big shot here. I'm just facilitating on behalf of Imam W. Muhammad for the community that says they're in association with him. But now I know that based on the phone calls, because we get the list of all the numbers, that there are others now joining us in America from different communities on that call, which is a blessing. It's expanded so much that other ethnic groups, cultural groups in Islam, they too are appreciating what we're doing. Now, we want to make it clear that what the Imam said too, we're not denying the science or the scientists, etc., and what have you. No, we accept that too. But the formula he gave me was simply, once you're able to ascertain the black moon, then it's a time of counting the hours after the moon is born, and so forth and so on. And that was the formula, and we used it, and for 20 years we have never missed it. Even though we know over the years there have been major countries that have incorrectly called it the starting of Ramadan, and had to come back and acknowledge that they made an error and a mistake. So we thank Allah for our leader, Imam W. Muhammad, follower of Muhammad the Prophet, for guiding us in this process. And as you mentioned the last call, after 20 years of doing it, it became very special to me in a very sentimental way. Mainly because the way in which I facilitated following what he asked me to do was we would wait to get calls, because we go across the whole region, the hemisphere of America, 9 states, and the hemisphere, which is also our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean who's in this hemisphere.
Okay.
So we know the moons, the sunsets, because this is when you look at, for the Helio, you have to look at the sunset, and between moonset, there's a time for sunset and moonset, and that's the time you look for the Helio. And we set it up to where we would not publicly call it into all regions that have a chance to see if they sighted it.
Okay.
And over the years, like I said, the East Coast, we weren't the ones that sighted. Sometimes they've been in the West, sometimes Midwest, sometimes, what's the other area there? You have 4 areas. East,
Midwest, the mountain time,
Mountain time and Pacific time, right? And we would wait, to hear, if somebody got a sighting, and sometimes we got sightings from that far, in the area because of rain clouds, etc. So it's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing to start the month, to have that gathering on the phone. And this year, it was just very special because male and female, we engaged to do this. And this year, it was a sister who first seen the helium out of the Maryland, Virginia area and called it in. And then Imam Ali Salam, whom she called it into, from Chesapeake, Virginia, he then called in and told me the sister had seen it. And then maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, he called back and said he sees it. So he was all excited, which is a good thing. And then the third person who called was Imam Yahya Abdullah, Jacksonville, Florida. He called it with excitement too. So it did good to be able to activate the call and let people know that, okay, we have 3 persons of well-known respect and trustworthy in our community, and let them make the report. And they make the report and see what they've seen. They take pictures and what have you, things like that. And once that's done, then we simply put it to the body of people that do we accept this report? And I would say maybe takbir, and after that they'll all be saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So we had about 70 people on the call this year, and so the Allahu Akbar was like an echo, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So it was really a moving situation for me, and I'm sure it was for everybody on the call too. That we stayed with our leader, and it has worked for 20 years, and we thank Allah for him and what have you. So yes, that beginning of Ramadan and that great spirit like that, and like I said again, we wait. We don't put it out there. One of the imams did. I had to call him up and let them know, don't do that. Wait like everybody else. I be hearing it. I know it. I don't post it until we get a chance for everybody, because you do that, now the spirit of the call and what happened there, we won't get it. And what have you. So. Alhamdulillah, it came out, and now we're in the 7th day of this very sacred and blessed month of Ramadan. Recently I had, I think it was in Juma, I spoke about Ramadan, and the president, Imam Yahya Abdullah, sent me a letter from our president, President Biden, in giving the Ramadan greetings. And when he sent it to me, I looked at it and it said Ramadan Kareem. And I'm like, I remember the president saying it, but they always say Ramadan Mubarak, which is the correct addressing it, the blessed month of Ramadan. And when I seen Kareem, I was wondering, so I called him and asked, where does Kareem come from? He said, yeah, the year before, whatever it was Mubarak, and we changed Kareem. And then I addressed Kareem, and Kareem is honorable, noble, etc. And also Kareem has a gentle, gentleness, honorable, noble, and gentle. So I spoke on it, and I heard the Imam. The Imam has spoke on it many years, many times. And certainly Kareem is noble, honorable, etc. But he also has said it also refers to gentle, that gentle spirit, that situation. So when I had used that understanding of it and said, it's Ramadan, and Ramadan, the word itself, the Imam spoke on in terms of it has a connection to a burning, a heat, and what have you, and certainly the heat would be dealing with we may say hunger, because we're not eating between so on, but more to deal with a reminder of us and the extreme passions that has right now in this society we're living in has just took the society over. Extreme passion seeking pleasures and etc. And here in the month of Ramadan, we restrain from eating when we would normally eat. We restrain from relationship with our lawful wife and etc. All of these things we restrain from to remind us of the need to bring your passions into control. All right, and have a chance to bring those passions under control. For pleasure and etc. We know those are some of the senses that God has given to us and what have you, but they need to be in balance. So Ramadan is also about bringing about a balance back in our life, and the recognition of all of those who are not eating a meal during this daylight time because they don't have a meal to eat. The circumstance in the world is they don't have a meal to eat. So so much great benefit in this month, and the reflection on our own life as individuals, because no one knows whether I'm fasting or you fasting. Only Allah knows.
Yes.
All right, and husbands and wives can't fast for each other. Children can't fast for parents. It's the individual having the opportunity to, by Allah's permission, given it to us, and demonstrated by the most excellent human model, in Muhammad the Prophet, on how to do this and get those blessings. And I must say that call itself started off as a great blessing for me, the struggle to do what the Imam asked to do. And like I said, it's been 20 years, and I'm certainly looking for some younger folks to pick it up that I can transfer it over to, and that they begin to coordinate and facilitate this call. So alhamdulillah, I mean, Ramadan is Ramadan Mubarak. Meet the challenge, meet the fire, the heat of the month, and know we be reminded of the suffering of the downtrodden, the turmoils of war, hatred, and all those things that are unfortunately over sexuality in the society we're living in right now, that we need to be able to stay strong and hold fast, as we would say, hold fast to the rope of God. And God says He will multiply the blessings. So praise be to God. A lot can be said on Ramadan, but alhamdulillah, hopefully that gives something to you and the audience.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah.
I would like to follow up with you when you said reminder of extreme passions. Passions of war that I see going on now, passions of corruption going on now. Could you speak to someone like myself who says, okay, as an American, am I proud to be an American now?
Well, praise be to God. I'm certainly proud to be a Muslim.
Yes, sir.
In America.
Okay, yes, sir.
All right. With all of the things based on the technology that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, highly glorified as God above all things, have blessed mankind to come into, the knowledge that God has opened up technology so that the world is a smaller place than it was, I would say, just yesterday.
Yes.
Communication, the ability to see the human family in a microsecond through technology, computers, so forth and so on, satellites, all of these things. And the fact that this program we're doing can be sent all over the world in a matter of minutes. I am humbled that God has favored us to be Muslims in this time of many trials for human society. I'm grateful to God for Islam, this religion of peace, and the one whom God gave it to, the Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and peace be upon him, the seal of the prophets, and his demonstration of it that makes the book of God, the revelation given to him, very clear and useful. Our holy book, the Quran, as we're reading it this month, maybe more than other months, the entire Quran, just that alone is so many more blessings, because every time you read it, it increases you in knowledge. You see more than you seen yesterday. And in a month of fasting, preparing your physical and mental body even gives you more insight by the mercy of God. Yes, it's a time of test for humanity. And as Imam Muhammad has said in the recent years before his passing, that we're living in a time of the concluding of things. And what is that concluding? It wasn't talking about the concluding of the earth, being destroyed, or the sun falling out the sky, or the moon falling out. No, the concluding of things of the influence of Satan, or Shaitan, or the devil, or the diabolical schema, the many names in which he demonstrates in terms of his influence over the human life. We're living in a time of more gambling, more chance taking, more exploitation of sexuality in an extreme mode, the hatred of people just to be hating, the starvation of people when there's plenty for people to eat, the extremes of usury that is tearing down nations and what have you. All these extremes, you hear it every day when you turn on the communication mechanisms, whether it be your phone, whether it be television. There's so many ways for the message to get through to you. All you hear is murder, hate, overdoses, sickness, and all of these things. And this is a time of concluding of things, to awaken mankind that if you continue down this path, this is the destruction. If you continue hatred for one another based on such flimsy things as your color, flesh, skin, and etc., you continue to demean your mother, your females. You continue to demean and undermine children and put on them burdens that they should not carry. They can't even be children. The insanity of people going in and shooting children in the schools and the classrooms of learning, which is supposed to be a sacred place and what have you. So the ODing of people who can't have a will to not take a drug and look to escape from this. The legalization of intoxicants under the name of making money. We're in that time, and this is time that's also been prophesied in the books before, the Old Testament, New Testament, Torah, Injil, etc., and in our book, the Quran, that we're in that time of prophecy, and it cannot be denied, where people are mentally not able to be stable, just totally losing it, young and old. And that's why I say I thank God for being Muslim in America at this time, having Islam as my way of life and etc. That all of these things that I mentioned have no doorway to come into my mind. My five senses are sharp, and it can see it off a mile away. It can smell it a mile away. It can hear it a mile away.
Yes.
It can taste it in the atmosphere a mile away to know that that's not the road I want to walk down. So we say praise be to God, you know. So and in Ramadan, this month here, gives us more strength to be a beacon of light in the midst of all of that. To hopefully demonstrate to people. And we got coming up in this month now, which is another sign from God, where our Christian brothers and sisters have the tradition of Easter coming up. Our Jewish brothers and sisters have the tradition of the Passover coming up. These are law signs. These are God signs that you are supposed to be the people, inviting all the people to what is good and right and just. And now all of us in the same time frame, fasting, praying, remembering the good works of the workers of God, the prophets of God, Isa and Miriam, Musa, Moses, David, our father Abraham, the father of the Abrahamic faiths, and what have you, that we should be waking up and become a more stronger voice in society against the promotion of the disrespect of the great human value that we should have as human beings. Yes. So we thank Allah. I thank Allah for America, that good people are more on the rise than the bad people, even though the bad people have more access to communication to constantly bring us bad news.
Yes.
Extremes and etc. Corruption in governments, corruption in politicians and etc. The hatred that's being promoted.
Yes.
It's, I remember, it reminds me of in the early days of our first experience under the Nation of Islam and the media tagging us as the hate that hate produced.
Mm.
That's how they described us in the Nation of Islam at that time. I think the reporter was Mike Wallace, if I remember the history. But we were live in it. I'm in the history, but I'm in the living. And now look at it. It ain't us. It's the whole world. And you're looking at the hate that hate produces.
Yes.
The idea of supremacy, that I'm better than you. Ain't that Satan?
Mm.
That I'm better than you because of the color of my skin.
Yeah.
And I should have more rights than you. And when I make laws and governments in terms of for calling it democracy and etc., I don't mean it to apply to me. I mean it applies to you who are on the common level, who don't have the influences that I have. So I'm on this level. I have the influences to not allow that law to apply to me, but I apply it to you in its fullest strength.
Yes.
And how many men and women that we're hearing about that's been in prison for 18 years, 20 years, 30 years, and such around the world, and they were guilty of nothing. Huh? This is terrible. But praise be to Allah. Praise be to the God, because God ain't absent. God is never absent.
Yes.
God is always present, and He extends us time. To put it this way, to get your act together.
Yes.
You know, and we thank God for Ramadan, because Ramadan, and for my own personal life, Ramadan has been the key to hold it together when things look real bad and things look like they're just not going to go our way. Faith build guide. Faith without being able to give you maybe in rational logic why I have this faith, but I have it anyway because I had seen for my own soul the success of believing that there is an authority bigger than all we can imagine, who created all of this and who is not affected by anything that He created. So alhamdulillah. Hopefully that answers that. Glad to be Muslim and in America at the same time.
Sir. Yes, sir. I will refer. Definitely. Thank you. You mentioned faith. We see, as they would call, disasters happening around the country, what they call tornadoes, floods.
Yes,
And people of faith, they'll say that this is what God wants to happen. Is that the way we should be thinking?
No, I think that nothing is out of God's sight. That's for sure. Nothing happens without His permission. That's for sure. But man in his arrogance can bring things on himself.
Yes.
Based on his arrogance and his disrespect for the environment. His disrespect for respecting the rule of Mother Nature.
Okay.
And his engaging in forbidden areas of mixing up things, engaging in creating of things that he should not tamper with.
Yes.
And in a result, pollution, the over extending of trees, removing trees, sacred environments that clearly the positive scientists have shown that these environments have a great impact on keeping a clean atmosphere and etc. The overusage of the mercy of God and giving man access to oils and fuels and things from the earth, that he, for greed, will not burn them and use them in a manner in which God has designed them to give you the best uses. Instead, he dilutes it, he does other things to it, and adds his invention to it, and it puts out more toxins and more poisons. Greed in terms of, I want to make more money and what have you, or more authority over people. Therefore, when I know I can grow a natural product that would be healthy to people, and we wouldn't have high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, heart attacks, cancer. All of these things are impact of mankind's arrogance in the use of free will, instead of using it to better the society. People starving without having clean water, when you have machines that God has given you the ability, blessings, that can clean the water in 3 minutes. Huh? But you deny them that because they can't afford it. Where you have abundance of food, as the book says, God says that, you can't count the ears on a corn and what have you. And then you go and you take the genetic splicing of it and make it into something that the human digestive system cannot digest. And when you eat these products, you chew them, but they come back out whole, never adding nothing but poison to your system. So a lot of these environmental things of storms and hurricanes and snows where there weren't snows, or now snows are not where they normally be, and etc. Man has chosen, in his arrogance and his greed, and this is where usury comes in, his extremes, overtaxing, inflation, inflating things. Inflation is tied to lying, a lie. When you say you have to inflate a price and etc. And I always use the sample based on me being in the plumbing industry. And recently I had to purchase a commercial hot water heater for one of our facilities in Michigan. And 3 months ago I went to get this heater, and it was about $3,000. Even that was extreme. 3 months later, I went back, and it's $6,000. Now, this hot water heater was probably bought in 2005 or something. So, at that point, when they purchased it, it was maybe $600. And they marked it up and probably sold it 120%, $1,200 and something. But now, because of this false sense of value, they have marked it up 5,000% times. We heard this about one of the medicines for, what was it for? A need now in the society, insulin, I believe it was, insulin, where a company decided, well, I can probably, everybody needs it, I can charge $800,000 for it. And an average person who needed it, no way could afford that. And at least then I think the government and others had to take that person to task and say, wait a minute now, you can't just do that. So this is the kind of thing that's going on. This is the environment we live in. Greed, greed, greed. Supremacy, supremacy, supremacy. Even the situation that currently is happening right now in Palestine and Israel. That the people are finally saying, wait a minute now, you have gone too far. You're going too far with corrupt government to stack the deck, to stack these places that we've seen as making the balance between the two government situations that we have, and the Supreme Court, the three powers as opposed to what's name, where you now can go and stack it so that the mind that's there will favor what you want. So where's the justice at? And the thing that's going over there in Israel now is about that. Trying to stack the deck and bring in, what do you call it, an oppressive regime, and keep the control in one person's hands. So we're living in this time. It's not something Brother Pasha is making up. This is the reality. And if mankind don't rise up, the masses of people are good people.
Yes.
Across the board. They're human beings and they're good. Why? Because good was what they were designed in.
Yes.
And we have to wake up and pull away from this and come back to our good God common sense as human beings. Otherwise, the earth is not going to be destroyed.
Right.
The moon ain't going to fall out the sky. The sun ain't going to fall out. The stars ain't going to fall. But rivers are drying up because of your misuse of it.
Yes.
Greed. So we need to think about these things. And like I said, in this month of Ramadan, a lot of the things reflect and having the time to pull away. We were not watching the television. you know, except for maybe try to get a weather report here and there, and you got to shake that to see whether that's really the right report or not, what have you. It's a time to really, this is a blessed month, because just that alone, to be able to pull away from these constant bombardment of man's inhumanity to man, injustices and etc. All the movies and the television programs, all about criminality and made popular, all about the insanity of family life and the insaneness between husband and wife and children and what have you. How can you watch that all day, every day, and not lose your mind?
Right.
So these are things we have to think about and do something about them. And I think enough is going to be enough. As I heard the great lady who died at a very early age, I think she was only 59, and she didn't die, they killed her. When they beat that lady for standing up for her right to be able to have the right to vote when it was said that they could vote. That's Miss Fannie Lou Hamer. May God elevate her in paradise for her courage. It says she died of cancer. No, she died of the hatred of her only asking to be treated with dignity and respect. And the government said she could vote, and they beat her in that cell. And the horrors of it, they took the inmates of our own race and had them beat her, 2 of them. Why the man who thought he was supremacy, the white man who thought he's supreme over everyone, and he was nothing but a devil and a beast of the worst type, had those men beat her with sticks. And then when they was worn out beating her, they couldn't do it, then he finally got into it too. Broke that lady's hip, her eye socket and etc. And she had the strength no matter what. She's a believer in God.
Yes.
She didn't stop. And she said, I am sick and tired before the world. She took it to the world and told the media, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And all of us, every human being, no matter what your nationality is, you should be sick and tired of being sick and tired. You should be sick and tired of hearing of school children being shot down in the classrooms, etc. You should be sick and tired of seeing people laying on the streets and not having nothing to eat, lost their minds, on drugs and etc. Young, old, black, white, brown, red, yellow. You should be sick and tired of governments oppressing people and telling them you can't have no child, governing over them. You should be sick and tired of this, because I certainly am. But thank God for Ramadan, so I can be sick and tired and not get sick.
Yes, sir.
Praise
Yes,
be to
sir.
God. Alhamdulillah.
You mentioned Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, and that comes with education.
Yes.
A lot of people may not know who she is, so let's speak about education. I mean, there's been so much talk about not having certain education in classrooms.
Yes, that is part of the problem, that a wrongdoer does not want to be exposed for what he or she is doing wrong. And without having the history, then you will not be able to correct the wrong that was done. Our Jewish brothers and sisters will not allow you to go anywhere in the world without knowing what happened to them in the 40s, in World War II, in Nazi Germany, and etc. They will not allow it. They will make sure everywhere in the world that you're going to know about what happened to them. These are European, for the most part, European Jews.
Yeah.
What happened to them in Nazi Germany with burning them up, starving them out, only because they were Jewish and had business savvy, and etc., what have you. They were targeted. That was education.
Yes.
And they made sure, and I would say sometimes they went to the extremes, but they wanted to make sure that by putting that there and putting it in on the front burner of all educations, from the preschool to the daggone universities to the highest degree you can get,
Yes.
you're going to know what happened to the European Jews in Europe.
Yes.
It's in every book, every newspaper, every what's name. And if you try to speak against it or say something in any kind of way, they will also come after you.
Yes.
They hunt it down and captured people who were part of that leadership, might have been 120 years old, they still want to prosecute them. That's extreme, but I understand what they were doing. So when you speak about education and you want to deny, in recent time, the history, the true history of our country, America, then she'll never be great again. If you won't acknowledge her shortfalls,
Yes, sir.
you won't acknowledge her criminality, you won't acknowledge her abusiveness, you won't acknowledge her injustice. You won't put it there so that the generations coming behind, the younger folks come down, will know that. And that's the point of the Jewish community, that they'll know that and never stand by. As they report, well, people stood by, the church stood by, the Pope stood by, others stood by when they knew that this was happening to them. So it's the same now in terms of what happened to us as enslavement in our country for 400 years. And you refuse to allow it to be put in the format of history, of the American history, so that young folks coming up will not come up with an idea that caused the Nazis and others to be easily sold into that kind of mindset that they are better than you. So yes, this is a terrible, another one of the things that has happened in society. Afraid of the truth. Ain't the devil afraid of the truth?
Yes, sir.
The devil's afraid of the truth. Because the truth will set humanity free. Alhamdulillah. It'll set humanity free. So we can have respect for neighbor to neighbor. We can have respect for differences and etc. We can learn from each other as human beings. We can share. We can barter. There will be no inflation. We can look out for each other. Like what's happening in Mississippi right now, in that poor area down there, destroyed by a tornado. That's a test, yes, on them, but it's more a test on the American society. What are you going to do?
Right.
I pray, and I know in our community they're there. There are men there. Why we have 100 trucks with tractors and backhoes and everything else going down to that town, not because the majority of people in that town were our relatives, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
We should be molding, lining up. Where's the 100 men with the trucks and tractors and backhoes and the technology, generators, and all things we know how to do? Heading down there and asking for help from any of our other family members, our European brothers, our Latin brothers, all of us, to get down there and help these people out.
Yes, sir.
To make this thing like it never happened to them. Huh? Well, it's difficult to do that. It's not. That's what we have. Yes, government's supposed to have its part, what's the name, but the human tragedy, what has happened down there in that town, we all should be down there. And we see the differences. It's our responsibility. We should be there. Where are the Muslim men? Huh? Where's the Muslim men of this community? Under the says, at least you men in the mountain. Where are you at with your tractors, with your trailers, etc.? How come you ain't called for this already? And line it up. And get on down there. This is the month of Ramadan. It tells the month of Ramadan, if wars declare on us, we have to fight. Huh? This is wrong, that we sit around and do nothing. This was communicated with Mayor Johnson down in Mount Bayou to find out what's going on, just yesterday. And he said, I knew you was going to call me, ma'am. This is my Christian brother down there. All right? And he said, I knew you was going to call me. He said, nah, I knew I was going to be calling you. I said, no, I seen that, and my heart is hurting. It's a poor, he told me, he said, man, that's the poorest county in the nation. First of all, that shouldn't even exist in Mississippi. It's the poorest county in the nation. And it's 90% of our folks. People who would be your mama, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather, huh? Your aunt, your niece, your nephew, all those people down there. How do we stand by and do nothing? This Muslim community, under Imam's leadership. Huh? How do we stand by and do nothing? So I told him, I said, listen, I'm gathering some money. I'm going to get that to you first. And I'm going to go on this TV thing, whatever they got me on, and I'm going to tell all you Muslim brothers, all you imams, all you guys say you something. You got a tool, you got a hammer, something. If you don't, come down there and learn something. And go down there in Mississippi. As the mayor told me, he said, man, it's still racist down here. I don't care. Yeah, there's all kind of racists down there. I don't care what they are. We're going down there to help build. And that's what we need to be doing. That's real. That's Ramadan.
Yes, sir.
Huh? So, I mean, it just makes no sense no more. And we do the same no matter where it's at.
That's right.
But those people in need. He told me, he says, the old lady, he went down there. He says, not too far from Mount Bayou. And he went down because he knew the mayor down there. So the mayor ain't had no sleep. Just going and going down there. And he said there was an old lady sitting in front, in a chair in front of her house, but her house was nothing but rubble. But she's so sharp, she can't go nowhere. She's sitting there. Your grandmother, your great-grandmama, she's sitting there saying, I believe in the Lord. And this is my house. I got nowhere else to go. How do we sit around and do nothing? Especially you live real close by the place. You right there in the towns. You're not too far from it. This is what you should be doing in Ramadan. Yeah. So these are the things that test on us more than it is on the people. That tornado more test on us. What you gonna do? Go on, what's them just talk and do nothing? I got Mayor Johnson down there in Mount Bayou. I told him I'll get you some money as soon as I can, which will be today. To send down there to you and get it started. What you need, man. What he needs. You know, until we can get down there and we get my backhoe and put it on the back of the truck and drive whatever miles I got to drive. Get down there and do what you can do. Yes. And look for nothing but to serve humanity. Now look for one dime. Look to brain relief. Now ask for one penny. That's what we should be doing. You know, you asked me the right question, I guess.
Yes, sir. I want to continue on that about humanity. What happened? Us as a community, you mentioned about the South. That's what we were raised to be family, to help one another. What happened to us, Imam?
Well, we walked away for trinkets. We walked away so much so that now the African, a man in America, had a history of being builders. Now it's hard to find a young man that knows what a screwdriver is, that knows what a pair of pliers is. Not alone don't know what it is, won't even know how to use it, a hammer, how to build something. We have allowed ourselves to be duped into not using our hands, no matter what technology is, to know how to build something, plant something, and etc., so that you can have better nutritious food for your families. We walked away from it. I'm sad to say, here at the mosque, Masjid Imam Shabazz, I may have 4 men that know how to build and do something here. That's a daggone shame. When there's opportunities for classes here, that we can give classes on plumbing, electrical, carpentry, so forth and so on, brick mason, building back. We need to get that back. How can you be a man and you don't know how to hang a picture on a wall? How can you be a man and you can't even change a light bulb and all you got to do is screw it in and screw it out? But you're busy looking to, I'm going to make it by singing something or dribbling the ball or what have you. Some other, sport, that's called sport. Right. Building something with your hand and establishing something and building a community, building stores, building houses, building, man, that's life. Yes. And all those who are in those fields able to make a living and make revenue, it should be no need for government or anybody else with the kind of money you're making to go there and make sure that you take that million, that 2 million, that 50 million, whatever you got down there, and you can monitor to make sure it does what it's supposed to do. I don't have that kind of money. But what little we have, the $4,000 to $5,000 I'm able to get together, I'm sending it down there. And I got to say Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
See, I can't deal with these cats, man, that's talking about they Muslim and they this, and all they want to do is sit up in the masjid or the mosque and pray all night and pray all day. Yes, sir. While people are down here starving, your own people. Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. You know, it's Ramadan. I'm supposed to be a little more what's the name, but you know, the prophet and them, the prophet and them had to fight. Yes. You know, and this is declare. We need to declare a fight. Yes. We need to be doing this. You know, and I'm asking you in my voice, and you hearing harmony. I need men who can do some things. You know, I need men who can do some things. There are all these men around here. I don't even know a man this day and time don't have a car. Don't have a car. I mean, good God Almighty, that was aspiration. Car, that was part of who you got to be. Transportation to take your family to do things. Don't have a car. Can't maintain a car. But criminality. There ain't no criminals. You weren't born to be no criminal. You're born to be a man obeying God. And all our young folks have been at the masjid and raised in the masjid. You walked away. But we helped you. We served you. We served your family for 30 years when you didn't have nothing. We came to the aid, and you don't know we came to the aid, because that's where it should be. But now I ask you to come back here and help me. Help me do this. You done went out and got some skills, some knowledge, etc. Come back here and give back your fair share to the mosque. You owe us to do this good work. All of them. I should name them all. And name their parents. So why your child is not here helping me when I helped them when you needed help? Praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir. Well, let's continue with family. So you spoke about men, and I know you mean mankind, but let's talk about mother and the women. What would be our position from all that you have said? What should be our position? What should we be doing?
Take your foot and put it in the man's butt and tell him to get his butt down there and do something, help the man.
Okay.
You know, that's Ramadan, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Forgive me. Okay. They should talk to their men and tell them, go help the imam. Go on down there and take your what's name out of here, and I'll miss you for 2 weeks. Don't worry about it. You know, have you get on out of here and go out there and do something. If nothing else, get a shovel.
Yes,
but go help.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's what the sisters need to do. Deny them and make your young boys and young men, tell them get out, and the imam needs help.
Yes.
To go help others.
Yes.
That's what he needs. Get on there, get the van, get the what's name, go on there, do it. We out there in Inkster, Michigan. And when we ask for the brothers to come, only a few come. And if you don't know nothing about the screwdriver, or a hammer, or a pair of pliers, or a drill, or what have you, at least if you come, you might learn something.
Yes, sir.
But they're like those in the scriptures, that when you call them, it says time for us to go to defend the nation, to go defend the situation, they make up every excuse they can come up with. And if you go to defend it, and you go, we go, we obey God, we go and do what we got to do, and we get killed, or we get hurt, whatever it is, then they'll say, well, see, that's why I didn't want to go see what happened down there.
Yes, sir.
I'd rather die trying to help humanity, help people, let a brick fall on my head, fall in a hole, whatever it is, than to sit around and do nothing.
Yes, sir.
And God is in charge of when I was going to be living and when I'm going to be dying.
That's right.
So praise be to God. So thank you for the questions, and inshallah we will keep working. We're not going to stop working in this blessed month of Ramadan. And my intent is, again, the questions you ask are stimulating these things, and I intend to give it from a good perspective, from the perspective of awakening. I'm obligated to awaken you to your nonsense and to your non-productive ways. This Ramadan, the reading of the Quran, should make you more productive than anything else. Fasting, restraining from the lawful things that you would normally do. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Not looking to have iftar, as I'm seeing these other communities are having, and having iftar, having feasts, big spreads of foods and everything else. What logic is that? When you didn't fast all day long, your oxygen is down, everything is down, and now you're going to sit at a table and eat a whole big old meal? What good was your fast? What did you learn from it? The idea was to understand that there are people on this earth that won't have no meal. Now, if you want to have all these meals, then make sure you give them to the needy and the poor.
Yes, sir.
And those of us who are fasting, we eat just a little something and keep going. You only break the fast with the prophet, the prayers and peace upon him, date, a little bit of water, and keep going. And you got into the whole time. Would you do that if it wasn't Ramadan? Would you eat like that? No. So when Maghrib come, when sunset come in, you're going back to the things that you would normally do if it wasn't Ramadan. Except for the emphasis is more on raising your spirit and reading the Quran and reflecting on your own life and your own self and your family. But this thing that they're doing to give government and act like that's what it is, so you fast a day, and now we sit down and having a big Eid feast. So you got our folks, and we'll come to Masjid Imam Shabazz, because we ain't got no big whole lot of food. We got some dates, some water, and a few nights I tend to cook a little soup or something I'm gonna make for those who will be here, and we'll have some of my special fish soup that I make. You know, I made it a few times. People seem to like it. I'm making some soup one of these nights, and we'll have that. And probably during the time when they always try to have a night of, nobody knows the time and the night that the Quran was revealed, but they pick a couple of nights, odd nights and what have you. But the Prophet made it clear that nobody knows it. Nobody knows it. With odd or even nights, you know. So you want to fast the prayers and do everything as though it's every night, because you don't know. But they do decide to have a night and what have you after the Isha prayer that we will gather. I think it's going to be around the 17th of the month of April that we'll come and have that. I'm going to look at it again, try and respect the people who do work and everything else, and be here and spend the time up to, at least 11 or so. 10:30, 11, making the prayers and what have you, and sharing with each other and what have you, and then be able to get on back home so you can get to work tomorrow morning, inshallah. So we're looking at that, God willing.
We thank you for this interview, Imam Pasha.
Praise be to God.
I do not want to end this interview. It's been very informative. Let me continue. You spoke about God and faith, and we see in the lives, particularly in schools, that God is not mentioned. Is that an influence on what's happening to us as a people in particular?
No, it's an influence of, again, the time of Satan and the conclusion of things. What human being who understands now, even through science, that God has blessed mankind to see that our creation itself and what our first forms looked like. The one half looking like sperm, something sticky and not pleasing to the sight. And then its activity on the other half. And from that unsightly looking something comes this great figure of a human being with everything in the right place under the normal circumstances, if there's no defect in the parents and etc. Comes here where your eyes are where they are, your nose is where it is, your ear is where it is, your arm is where, your legs, your feet, everything in proportion. Your head is where it's supposed to be, everything in proportion to balance your life. How could you in this day and time take a position that there's not a creator who did this? This is perfectly designed, that there's not a designer. And whomever that designer is, does that designer not do your ultimate respect?
Yes, sir.
So God, the Almighty, in our book, when he revealed himself to the prophet, he revealed himself as the creator. He did not say Allah. He said, I am your creator. And as our creator, all of the things that support that creation, we didn't have them when we came here. We didn't bring them with us. They were here before us. The earth was formed before us. That's a merciful creator. He didn't put us in here barren and naked. The pictures that we get is that he put Adam, alayhi salam, our father, in a garden with plenty. So that's telling us something. So now, anything that we structure our languages, the technology we're using, anything from the beginning to now was here available in knowledge in the brain that God put in our head. And the ability to use it. And the best results is when you use it for the benefit of God, obeying God, believing in that Creator. And God, the Creator, goes by many names. You say God, you say Allah, but He said, I'm the Creator. And I was talking to my Jewish rabbi brother yesterday, and he was so enthused, he called me to give me the Ramadan greetings, and I returned the greetings for him for the Passover that's coming up. And he was just discussing a circumstance with his wife being very ill, and there was a Muslim doctor who brought her back to life. That's how he said it. And he was just so overwhelmed, you know. And he was talking to me, he said, ma'am, you know, he says, I learned you all have 99 names for God. We got 26. I said, we can give all kinds of names, but 99 is to try to cover a lot. I said, it's 100 if you want to say, or 1,000. Because whatever is good for humanity, whenever the language becomes where it's good because God made it that way. But He gives us the choice to choose between choosing the good or choosing the bad. That's what makes us higher than all other creation. No other creation has the ability to make that choice. All other creations are obedient to its created nature. So then how do we have anything we call education that's going to reveal or teach to the human family on how to utilize these things? You would not be able to do it if you didn't have a brain, intelligence, to be able to do it.
Yes.
Now, you may make errors and mistakes and take something you made that you know is for good and use it for wrong. And God gives you a chance. He said, well, you use it for wrong, and it's not going to maintain it being wrong too long because it's not itself that you took it from was not designed for it to be so. So eventually, when you use something that God gave us, and you use your brain to go in there and become a little teeny-weeny creator, and you use it for wrong, that thing itself has clocked into it. Eventually, it's going to turn on you because it's going to always be there to do what's right. Yeah. Praise be to God. So education. How could we possibly say the Creator under all the names that you want to refer to the Creator? How can we say education is to be given credit to man, where nothing that he is constructed in books and literature or built and etc. did he bring with him? It was here already. And God gave him the ability to go into the science of it. This is what Islam and the Muslim community is known for, coming into the history and bringing in the science and etc. Math, this, that, the other. But the credit should be to God. So how do we have education and say the Creator cannot be referred to? You're going to stop at Brother Pasha, he wrote this book. Well, how did he write it? What did he use? Did he use something that he made himself? Or these things, this hand had to be made, the brain had to be made, the eyes had to be made, the ears had to be made, the 5 senses had to be alert, etc. So he can observe these things and then reduce it to writing? So where's the credit? To his writing or to the one who gave him the ability to be able to write? And until this society comes back to that globally, we're going to continue to reap the wrath of our stupidity and our arrogance. Without recognizing and giving the credit to the Creator, we will continue and have the turmoil that we have, the weather condition and everything else, which is caused by our arrogance, our polluting the oceans, making products for greed that won't, you can't recycle, so forth and so on, for greed, no other purpose, for more money. So inflation, interest, all of those things there are here because man has made them. They're not God made, man has made them. and using it in the wrong way to oppress the masses of people mentally and physically. So praise be to God. I mean, there's a lot to be said on that, but that's the basic point.
Well, you say we trust in God. I believe on our dollar bills we have "In God We Trust." In certain higher courts, they have about being God we
Yes.
trust.
Yes.
So how is the nation? It seems like we're not applying what we say our foundation is supposed to be.
You're absolutely right. Your observation is correct. Good people, good men and good women, seen that, and they try to lead them on to say, in the courts, in God we trust, on the dollar, in God we trust, recognizing the Creator. And it's there, but how many people look at the dollar and see in God we trust?
Right, like you said, applying something.
Yeah, right. I mean, no. And same thing in the court system. You know, I mean, you may look at that, but I said once before, you go to court and you know you ain't guilty. He said, "Excuse me, Your Honor, it says up there in God we trust. And in the name of God, I didn't do this. Are you going to trust it? What are you going to help me out here?"
Right.
You know, I'm going to take him away. You know, 10 years. You know, so again, education without recognizing the source is detrimental to the mental health of the student. Without giving credit to the source is detrimental to the. You're going to stop at the teacher. And your teacher, where did you get that from? Oh, I got it from such and such. You can maybe name somebody. My great grandfather gave me. And where he got it from? And he got me great grandfather. And where he got it from? You know, and go back. Where you got it from?
Yes.
And ask some question. Was it here? He said, my great grandmother. Okay. Was it here though? Did he bring it with him out the womb? That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Right.
He brought the possibility out of the womb with him to be able to access what was already here for him. But he came out of the womb in a state of submission to Creator.
Yes.
And that's that whole birth process. When the normal circumstance there, when the baby comes out the womb, he or she is coming out the womb in the submission of sajda.
Yes.
That's how they come out. And it's known, unless you know, that there's a rope, there's a connection between them and their mother. And the mother is supposed to be connected because she was connected. And all of us was connected to what? And the book says, and hold on to the rope of God. It's a symbol of that. Don't never give up on the rope of God. Though we clip it here, we're going to leave that navel there so you'll know you were tied to something. You were connected to something. And as Imam Muhammad says so brilliantly, and I'm going to conclude with this, he says so brilliantly, there's no human baby born on this earth anywhere that comes out of the mother's womb and cry in Jewish dialect. There's no baby on this earth coming out any mother's womb and cries in Japanese or Chinese. No baby comes out of the mother's womb and cries in a Spanish dialect or in an African dialect or Irish or Polish or Italian or Ethiopian or any dialect. They all come here from their mother's womb. And if you did not see those babies, you would not be able to identify who the parent is. Because they're human. God did that. And we just look past that.
Yes, sir.
And God says, and then what happens to them is the places you put them in and the influences you put on them that makes them racist, that make them think they're better than others, or that makes them ignorant, or makes them what's them. It is what you do, but that's not what I gave you.
Yes, sir.
I gave you a child ready to be fashioned and shaped in respect for the one who created her.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to God. So,
We have to talk about our activities that are coming out on Jelly No Good, the
oh,
Juneteenth, the DNA Convention. You were
yeah,
talking about
wow,
us as humanity. This
yes,
is where we bring in us as Masjid Shabazz, but also as Muslims in the
yes,
community
yes.
to express this is what we're about.
Well, praise be to God, you're correct. You know, April's right. April's here, and we'll have our Jail Ain't No Good annual walk,
Yes.
just addressing the issues of jail ain't no good, and you don't have to go there. And there's another life for you if you choose to do it. And to recognize that if you do crimes and things like that to go to jail, then you're not going by yourself. You're taking that loving mother and father who loves you to jail with you. You're taking your brothers and sisters to jail with you. You're taking the whole community suffers from you going to a jail, prison, male or female. So that's what that walk is trying to address for almost 20-something years that we've been doing it through the city and the streets of Harlem. And then, as you said, Juneteenth, which we have been celebrating Juneteenth by the invite of our Imam, W.D. Muhammad, to tell us to join Juneteenth and to have it. And in Harlem, there was no Juneteenth celebration, and we kicked it off, and for 30 years. And now, by the consistency of our efforts and others around the country who have been having Juneteenth too, that our governments are recognizing it as a holiday and what have you. So Juneteenth is coming up. And then we follow with our Claire Muhammad Summer School, where again we looking and teaching agriculture and other things on that land, 130-acre land that we have there in a historical area in Randolph, Virginia, where we were enslaved on that property and what have you. And we should be taking hundreds of children there, with hundreds of parents coming to help support us with that. And all of those who have skill, agriculture and what have you, to build and make this thing happen. Then we have the DNA, the Noble the convention there in our property in Michigan, Inkster, Michigan. That comes up, and we have so many programs. I'm trying to the Sierra Conference that comes up again, and then we have the that's the Life of Our Prophet. Educational banquet,
Yes,
what have you, for raising monies for our school systems throughout the country. So we stay active, and we involved with our city government here in New York. Right now, work on a program to address the homeless and provide some kind of housing for them and some of our new immigrant brothers and sisters. We're working on that. So, you know, there's the economics in terms of business development we've been doing. Back with our classes of teaching English as a second language to a lot of the new immigrants who's coming, both from Africa and from the Latin countries. We're having those classes. So there's a lot that God has favored us to step out there and do, and we're busy, and we need all the help we can get.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, praise be to God, you're correct. We have all of those activities, and all you got to do is contact Masjid Imam Shabazz at 102 West 116th Street, New York, New York, 1026, or you can get to us on our, I guess the Masjid webpage.
Yes,
website.
sir.
And what is that?
www.themasjidmalcolmshabazz.com.
Yes, and also join us with our Thinker newspaper, which we try to carry the most positive, productive articles, history, and etc. that will inspire all people and what have you. So support the Thinker newspaper and give us your articles of good activities, positive things that are happening, organizations and etc. So we're involved with the government here, our mayor here, with our mayor in Inkster, Michigan, and all the places that we're at. You know, so be involved. You know, registering people to vote, supporting good candidates, and running candidates ourselves. You know, so praise be to God. We're grateful to God for Islam, I tell you, because one thing it'll do, it'll keep you busy.
Yes, sir.
And they say an idle mind is a devil workshop, so he don't have no place up in here because we stay busy. Praise be to God. So alhamdulillah.
We thank you for this interview, Imam Pasha.
Well, we thank you, Sister Masha, for your questions and stimulating thought that I pray to God that came out in a way, in a spirit that will be helpful and not with intent to hurt or harm or make people feel bad, anything like that, But this month of Ramadan we're in is a very sacred month for us, and our spirits are high for productivity, for activities that will produce good and nothing but good. And we pray to God that our sharing with you this conversation, that it gives you good and nothing but good. Behind me is a picture of the Hajj there in the sacred precincts of Mecca, there at the Kaaba, and it's in the evening time. And I don't know whether it comes through clear on the film where you can see it, but everything you see there are people. And that's the mosque, the Masjid Haram. In the center of that mosque is the sacred house that Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael built. And that's once in a lifetime our fifth pillar that we all try to make. And I'm El Haji, I have made it. And when I look at it, it brings back such heartfelt memories, because I was there with about 3 to 4 million people, all of us in the same. And in that masjid, you see the roof is full, and there's 3 or 4 layers inside are full, and all of us are doing the same thing at the same time. That is a life experience that, God willing, we hope that we will be able to bring a group again finally. We was hoping to make it, but it became cost prohibitive at this point, but we're still working on it. We haven't given up. And contacting the Saudi Arabian government there to ask them to find a way for people to be able to afford it and what have you, because at this time it's just not affordable. So inshallah, God willing, God answers the prayers of the believers, and I think it's going to happen. But that's what the picture is behind me. And we look forward to a successful Hajj when Hajj time come after the month of Ramadan, about 2 or 3 months after, and for those who can make it and afford to do so. So alhamdulillah. We thank you. May God's peace be unto you. And we greet you, Ramadan Mubarak, and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Ramadan Mubarak.